Part 2 of my 2026 Buffalo Bills mock offseason starts right now on Locked On Bills.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Bills Mafia? It's Joe Marino, author of the Herd Mentality Substack, co-host of the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast, co-host of the NFL First Read Podcast, and I'm your host of Locked On Bills. Locked On Bills is a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. I want to thank you for making Locked On Bills your first listen every day, and a big welcome and shout out to our everydayers. You know who you are. Those of you who never miss a single episode, I appreciate y'all being here very, very much. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Well, folks, welcome in. It is time for part 2 of my mock offseason. And if you have not consumed part 1 of the mock offseason, I highly encourage you to push pause and listen to it first, because this is part 2 and it's all connected. Both episodes dropped at the same time, so it is available for you to consume. I encourage you. Everything is very sequential here, so you got to consume part 1 for part 2 to make sense. And in part 1, I covered creating cap space, handling expiring contracts, and the signing of outside free agents. In episode 2, this is going to be our mock draft, our 7-round mock draft, and the roster projection. Wanted to remind everyone of some of the goals that I had in doing this. First of all, it's not necessarily meant to be predictive. It is full of my bias and things that I would want to happen. The idea is to show a path. I want to give you an idea of what can be accomplished by Brandon Beane this offseason. And of course, it is Greg Thompson approved. He went through and signed off on all of my money adding up and player contract projections being reasonable and all those types of things. And again, my theme with this, as I've considered all the needs that the Bills have, is I want answers everywhere. I don't want to go in and say, well, cross our fingers, let's hope that we can get by with that option. I wanted answers everywhere. And so we've done a lot of it, and now it's time for the NFL draft piece of this. And so I entered this NFL draft with some goals in mind and things that I want to accomplish. I would say edge rusher was my top priority based on how the free agency period played out. And so I wanted to get a couple of young edge rushers to fill things out. I also wanted to add a player at receiver that's meaningful. I wanted to get a cost control young player that has some upside at receiver. I wanted to get some help at corner. I needed some depth there. I needed at least one piece for the offensive line, and I wanted specialists. I wanted to find a new punter and kicker that the Bills can have on rookie deals and hopefully find their tandem for a long time. And so the Bills enter this draft with picks 26, 91, 126, 163, 167, 219, and 227. Based on the DJ Moore trade, I'm sort of hopeful and predicting that the Bills are going to trade out of the first round. There's a lot that we have to figure out between now and then, but generally right now, with the Bills now missing a second-round pick, I think the Bills need to recoup some of that. They need young players that are cost control that can help this football team, and I want to find them. And so I did want to trade out of the first round. And so that leads me to, all right, who has draft capital that would maybe want to come back into the first round? And I very quickly settled on the Jets. The Jets have the most draft capital by far, including pick 33. And so I wanted to move from 26 to 33. We'd have the opening pick of the second round. And the logic here is that the Jets trade back into the first round to get Ty Simpson, the quarterback from Alabama. And so that's the thought. And so the terms of the trade are this. The Bills give 26 and get 33 103, and 175. And the Jets' 2027 fourth-round pick. Now, the math on the trade value chart says that 103 and 175 is enough. But because it's a division trade and it's for a quarterback, we got to tax him a little bit. So we get their fourth-round pick in 2027. So now the Bills have 33, 91, 103, 126, 163, 166, 175, 220, and 228. I have 9 picks now for the Bills in this draft. And so let's tell you who I picked. And I'll be honest with you, I have not in-depth scouted all of these players. I'm familiar. I've got a lot of work to do on this draft class still, but I think these are all players that would fit. And it's kind of the positions that I have in mind based on what I did in free agency. So with the 33rd pick, so round 2, pick 33, I have the Bills selecting edge rusher R. Mason Thomas out of Oklahoma. Explosive and bendy edge rusher. Not super big, right? Probably going to play in the 240s, but is explosive and super flexible. Played at Oklahoma, and so the Bills have great intel on him. The Bills' corners coach, Jay Valai, was their co-defensive coordinator the last few years in Oklahoma. Think the Bills' version of Nick Bonito. That's my objective here. Of course, Nick Bonito, a huge part of that Denver defense that I think Jim Leonard will want a player like that. So now we have R. Mason Thomas at edge rusher. Our next pick is round 3, pick 91. And we're going to go with a receiver. Ted Hurst out of Georgia State. 6'4", 206 pounds, ran 4.42 in the 40, 2 productive seasons at Georgia State, down the field explosive receiver. And so I just wanted to stock the cupboard a little bit with some traits, with some upside, with some youth. And Ted Hurst is my answer with pick 91. Round 4, pick 103. We're getting another edge rusher, Jashawn Barham from Michigan. Very diverse player. He's been a rush linebacker for Michigan. He's played off the ball, and he's just very dynamic. I love the way he beats blocks. He's explosive. And so he gives us a versatile player that we can play in multiple spots in the front 7. With our next fourth-round pick, so we have round 4, 126, I want to get some corner depth. We're going cornerback Takario Davis out of Washington. 6'4", 194 pounds, 33 3/8 on the arms. Ran 4.41. Think press man corner with tremendous length, ball skills. He might have some appeal as like a free safety. But if my plan is for Roger McCreary to go play in the slot, I definitely need some depth at outside corner. Takario Davis gives us a young player with upside to have behind Max Harrison and Christian Benford. Round 5, pick 163. We're going to the offensive line. Pat Coogan out of Indiana, 6'5", 311. Started his career at Notre Dame. Had 1 season as their left guard. Had 1 season as their center. And then this past year for Indiana, he was their center. 3-year starter with time at center and guard. He was the Rose Bowl MVP. I love getting a player that was part of that Indiana program that can give us a young player that further bolsters the options on the interior. And we're kind of taking a bit of a shotgun approach here and putting a lot of bodies in there and hoping to get some answers along the way. Round 5, pick 166. We're getting another receiver, but it's not really a receiver. This is a punt returner. I wanted a punt returner. That was a weak spot for the Bills last year, and I wanted an answer. We're getting a big-time answer here in Caden Wetjen from Iowa. 5'9", 193 pounds, ran 4.47, tremendous returner. On punts, 55 career punt returns, 46 fair catches, so a ton of experience. Only had 1 muff, 17.5 yards per return, and 4 touchdowns. Kick returns, 57 kick returns, averaged 28 yards, and had 2 touchdowns. So 6 career return touchdowns, 4 on punts. And I wanted that punt return pedigree. And we get it. We're solidified there. We got a punt returner. And we're going to keep going special teams here. Round 5, pick 175. We got a kicker, Trey Smack from Florida. Obviously, his name is awesome, Trey Smack. You got to smack it through the uprights. That'd be fun, right? This guy's got a big leg. For his career at Florida, 10 of 13 from beyond 50. Got us a young kicker. Could move on from Tyler Bass. And then in the 7th round, pick 220, we're getting a punter, Jack Stonehouse out of Syracuse. The Bills met with him at the combine, and so we got a young punter. Then we have one more pick, round 7, pick 228, and I'm trading it. I'm trading it to the Giants for a 2027 6th round pick. So we're going to give them a 7 this year for a 6 next year. And so that's the draft class. And in addition to the players we added, I've also added 2 picks for 2027. We have all of our organic picks in 2027, plus the Jets 4, which we anticipate being a, high 4th round pick. And then the Giants 6th round pick, which could be a high 6th round pick, and got a couple of nice assets. So here's the draft haul one more time, and then we'll get into the depth chart. Round 2, pick 33, edge rusher R. Mason Thomas out of Oklahoma. Round 3, pick 91, wide receiver Ted Hurst from Georgia State. Round 4, pick 103, edge rusher / linebacker Jashawn Barham from Michigan. Round 4, pick 126, cornerback Takario Davis from Washington. Round 5, pick 163, interior offensive lineman Pat Coogan out of Indiana. Round 5, pick 166, wide receiver, really punt returner Caden Wetjen out of Iowa. Round 5, pick 175, kicker Trey Smack out of Florida. And round 7, pick 220, punter Jack Stonehouse out of Syracuse. So that's my mock draft. And coming up next, we're going to really dive into this depth chart. And we'll bring to light all of the moves and look at it, each position group and what it looks like. So we'll get to that next. Folks, be sure to stick with me. We live in a world where we can stream anything, order food in minutes, and carry supercomputers in our pockets, and somehow buying tickets to a live game still feels complicated. There's hidden fees, jumping prices, endless steps. There's got to be a better way, and there is, and that's why I use Game Time. It gives fans the advantage. It makes getting tickets simple, whether it's to NFL games, concerts, comedy, whatever you're into. I actually recently jumped into the app looking for tickets to a comedy show that me and my wife wanted to go to, and it only took a few minutes. You could see the exact view from your seat before you buy. The price includes all fees, so there's no surprises coming at checkout, and you can even spot zone deals where you pick the section and Game Time picks the seat for extra savings. 2 taps, and you've got great seats locked in. Fast, easy, done. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets. Download Game Time. Create an account and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Game Time today. All right, let's do it. Let's talk about this roster that I have assembled. And at the end, I'll also tell you who my core special teamers are and then what the final cap position is after some additional moves are made. So let's focus on the offense here. At quarterback, we're keeping 2 players, Josh Allen and Mitch Trubisky. Pretty cut and dry. Shane Buechele will have him back on the practice squad. At running back, this one's another one that's very cut and dry. James Cook, Ray Davis, Ty Johnson, and of course, we brought back Reggie Gilliam. Frank Gore can be back on the practice squad. So really no investments at quarterback or running back other than re-signing Mitchell Trubisky and re-signing Reggie Gilliam. The only 2 players I re-signed. At wide receiver, we have several changes. There's only 3 players from last year that are back, and we have 3 new bodies. So, of course, DJ Moore, who the Bills traded for, he's in the mix. Khalil Shakir and Keon Coleman. We also have Josh Palmer, of course, is back. And then our 2 rookies, Ted Hurst and Caden Wetjen, who's really a punt returner. And so I would guess our 11 personnel, our 3 wide receiver sets is going to be DJ Moore as the X receiver, Josh Palmer opposite of him, and then Shakir in the slot. That feels a lot better than what it was last year, right? I hope. And Josh Palmer, just stay healthy, dude. I think the guy can play. He's got a great skill set. Just be healthy, dude. And then I love that we have the young vertical player in Ted Hurst that has speed and size and upside, and the Bills got to start doing this. They got to draft more receivers. Brandon Beane is not really drafted many. Keon Coleman, Khalil Shakir, Gabe Davis, like Caden Prather, and that's about it. Ray McLeod, Austin Prohl. They got to invest more meaningful and mid-round capital to start giving themselves some chances to hit instead of having to trade for receivers all the time and pay receivers all the time. They need some cheaper options. So Ted Hurst, welcome to the mix. So the receiver room, again, DJ Moore, Khalil Shakir, Keon Coleman, Josh Palmer, Ted Hurst, and then Caden Wetchen, who is the punt returner. So we're keeping 6. At tight end, really nothing happened here except for what we did with Dawson Knox, extending him with also there being a pay cut element. So our tight end room is Dalton Kincaid, Dawson Knox, and Jackson Hawes. Aleki Letu would be back on the practice squad. I forgot to tell you, at receiver, Curtis Samuel is, of course, cut. Stephen Gosnell, McCole Hardman, Jalen Virgil, all released. Tyrell Shavers is probably a pup candidate to start the year. For the offensive line, obviously there's a lot of turnover here. Our left tackle is Deion Dawkins. Then at left guard, we have Wyatt Teller. Our center is a battle between Cedric Van Pran-Granger, Ryan Bates, and Alec Anderson, all players that have at least 2 years with Josh Allen on this football team. Somewhere along the way, we got to have a starter there. I think we will have one. The others can stay as reserves. Then our right guard is O'Cyrus Torrence. Remember, we extended him. Our right tackle is Spencer Brown, of course. And then we also have Pat Coogan, who we drafted. And then Tylen Grable is our swing tackle. You might be thinking a little bit about offensive tackle depth. Of course, Grable is our swing. But I think between Bates, like if you really had to have one, Bates can go there in a pinch. Anderson has done it in a pinch. And then, of course, like Chase Lunt and Travis Clayton, we'd love to have them back on the practice squad. But those are not players that I have initially making it. We're going to keep 9 offensive linemen: Dawkins, Anderson, Grable, Cedric Van Pran-Granger, O'Cyrus Torrence, Spencer Brown, Ryan Bates, Wyatt Teller, Pat Coogan. Then our specialists, we have Reed Ferguson returning at long snapper, but we drafted Trey Smack and we drafted Jack Stonehouse. And so this puts us in a position with Tyler Bass that we can release him post June 1 and save $3.95 million. And we are going to do that. So new specialists for the Bills, Trey Smack and Jack Stonehouse. All right. That's the offense. Coming up, we'll talk about the defense. I'll tell you who my core special teamers are. And then, of course, where the Bills' cap position is after everything is said and done. So, folks, be sure to stick with me. It's tax time, but for a lot of us, the old way of doing taxes is a lot. Trying to book an appointment that's not the most convenient, sitting in a waiting room with a stack of papers, emailing back and forth and wondering if they really get your situation. But this year, you're getting a major upgrade. Intuit TurboTax now has in-person locations nationwide. You can meet face-to-face with a real tax expert, and your documents get uploaded straight to your TurboTax app on the spot. And just like that, you're done. Your TurboTax expert will work to get you every dollar that you deserve while you get real-time notifications as you go about your day. It's the relief of walking in and meeting a real person and walking out knowing your taxes are being handled right. So head to TurboTax.com/local to find a store near you and book your appointment today. All right, folks, we got to talk about this defense, tell you who our core special teamers are, and then, of course, where this cap position is at. Defensively, on the defensive line, we're keeping 7 players. 2 of them are nose tackles in Crisis Tonga, free agent signing, and Deion Walker. We're cutting Fedarian Mathis and Zion Logue. Hopefully we get one of them back on the practice squad. And then our 5-tech/4 eyes, Greg Rousseau, Ed Oliver, Sebastian Joseph Day, Landon Jackson, and TJ Sanders. And then Dwayne Carty and Dwayne Carter and Tommy Akingbasote, they're released. So it's unfortunate. Dwayne Carter, a 3rd-round pick a few years ago, he's an odd man out here. So 7 defensive linemen. Tonga and Walker at the nose. Oliver Rousseau, Sebastian Joseph Day, TJ Sanders, Landon Jackson as our 5 techs, 4 eyes, with Sebastian Joseph Day also has some versatility to play in the A-gaps. On the edge, like true outside linebacker type players, stand-up players. We're going to keep 5 of those. Michael Hoyt, Arnold Ebiketie, which is our free agent signing from the Falcons, Javon Solomon, and then we drafted 2, R. Mason Thomas out of Oklahoma and Jashawn Barham. And in the acquisitions of Ebiketie, R. Mason Thomas, and Jashawn Barham, we have infused this group with a ton of athleticism. We have burst and bend for sure in those players, which was a huge objective. At linebacker, we're keeping 4. And this is a new part of like this style of defense. They only keep 4 off-ball linebackers. So, of course, we signed Leo Chenal, which also adds a ton of athleticism to our rush profile. Terrell Bernard, Dorian Williams, and Joe Andreessen. That means Keontae Jenkins and Jimmy Charlo are released. Then at corner, we are keeping 5 of those. Christian Benford and Maxwell Hairston. Taron Johnson for now. Takario Davis, our draft pick that's going to provide us with some youth and depth. And then Roger McCreary, who we signed with the intent of him replacing Taron Johnson. Worst case scenario, we have depth and a true succession plan because it was a 2-year deal. I would love to believe that Dorian Strong can be part of the mix. I just don't know what the future is there. And that means we're also releasing MJ Devonshire to Corey Couch and Darryl Porter Jr. And then we're also going to keep 5 safeties. Cole Bishop, Sam Franklin, Dane Belton, Jordan Hancock, and PJ Locke. And so Bishop and Belton are our starters. Locke and Hancock can kind of compete to be the dime player. And then Sam Franklin's a core special teamer. So as we went through, Taylor Rapp is released, and then Wande Owens would also be released in this scenario. So that's a 53. I kind of like how it came together. Of course I do. I mean, I went through and picked all this, and I didn't have any competition from other general managers. I signed the players I wanted to for the deals that I wanted to. I understand the element of that. I use Pro Football Focus for the mock draft simulator. And so that's a real mock draft that I did. I didn't fudge it or anything like that. Those are real picks that I made using the PFF mock draft simulator. The core special teamers, of course, we have new kicker and punter, but I thought it was interesting to kind of go through and parse out, like, these are the critical players for kickoff and punt and kick return and punt return. Reggie Gilliam, Sam Franklin, PJ Locke, Joe Andreessen, Dorian Williams, Javon Solomon, Jashawn Barham. I mean, that's 7 guys right there. You also have Caden Wetchen to be the punt returner. Jackson Hawes can factor in a little bit. I think you have a pretty robust group of potential special teams contributors and some that should be very high volume snap players. So what does this mean for the cap? Well, as I stated, the Bills have, based on everything I did, right at about $3 million, $2.9 million in cap space. With the drafting of the kicker, Trey Smack, we're going to release Tyler Bass, and that gets us another $3.95 million. So now I have $6.8 million in functional cap space that's going to work towards operating funds in the season. I also have the Taron Johnson lever. If you like what you have from Roger McCreary and you say, you know what, Taron Johnson, you're cooked. After June 1st, you can release Taron Johnson and free up $8.7 million. So there you go. Now you have even more in-season operating funds. The other lever that I would mention is Josh Palmer. The Bills could release him after June 1st and free up a little over $5 million in cap space. And if they found somebody that would want to trade for Josh Palmer, the Bills can actually free up $10 million in cap space. Now, there's some dead cap they'd have to accumulate this year and next. I think it's like very minimal this year. It'd be like 1 point something, maybe around 5 million for next year. But the 10.1 that you get in cap space right now is very real. And so maybe you like what you're getting from Keon and the rookie Ted Hurst. And I don't think you would get a good return for Josh Palmer, but you could do like Josh Palmer and a 6 for a 5. And the real win is that you get the cap space. So I like how this came together in terms of, all right, you did a lot, but you're not completely devoid of functional cap space during the season. And again, I recognize the advantage that I have. Just doing it on a spreadsheet. I'm not competing. I'm not negotiating. Deals could come in more than I anticipate, although I use the foundation of like people that project contracts, Spot Rack and Over the Cap and PFF, and Greg also agreed that my numbers were competitive. So it's probably a little aggressive, but I think Beane can pull off something close to this. I'm mostly fascinated with how much cap space he creates. I think that's the part of this that's going to be most interesting to me. Obviously, he's gone out and traded for DJ Moore, which is a pretty big swing, but even with that, there's still a lot they can do. And we'll find out next week. It's going to be exciting. You know, we're going to be covering it for you every step. Tons of content reacting to everything that's going to be going down. So make sure that you are subscribed. I'd love it if you took a second to rate, review, and share the podcast. Let me know what you think about this mock off season. Fill up the YouTube comments with your thoughts. Let me know what you would do. It's always fun to consider all this, and then we'll get the real thing next week. All right, folks, that's it. Thanks as always. Go Bills, and I look forward to catching up with you again real soon.